Welcome back to the channel. When everything seemed to be over, Long suddenly appeared. Just one sentence from him made the policeman awaken from his long-buried memories. But then the cruel truth came. Sin Nhat, his beloved wife, had disappeared without a trace. No one knew where she was. But one thing was certain. He would not sit still. The search began. Will the police be able to save his wife in time? The hot noon, sunlight filtered through the leaves onto the porch. Hang sat silently by the tea table, her eyes hazy, not knowing who she was. His mother-in-law, a woman who had aged with worry, slowly said, "Do you remember the first time you came to meet our family? Back then, you were so nervous that you spilled a cup of tea." Hang frowned slightly. Mother continued, "And the day you and Nhat got lost at the Pine Hill, both of you came back soaked as rats, but still laughed loudly throughout the house." Hang clenched her hands. Vague sounds suddenly rang out in her head. Laughter. The sound of someone calling someone's name. But then everything suddenly stopped. Just when the air was dead silent, the gate suddenly opened. A young man with a thin figure, but eyes full of emotion, walked in. It was Long, Hang's own son. Hearing that his father had lost his memory, Long immediately came to find him. Hang looked at him, her eyes strange, not familiar at all. Long choked. "Dad? I'm Long. Dad, don't you really recognize me?" Hang shook her head, silent. Long took a deep breath and said, "Dad, do you remember? 3 weeks ago, our house was completely destroyed by a storm. Dad carried me out of the collapsing house. Dad was even injured because he was shielding me with a corrugated iron roof." The words were like arrows piercing through the fog in Hang's mind. A moment of dizziness. Then suddenly memories burst out. He gasped, eyes wide open, his whole body trembling. "Long, my son," he whispered, tears rolling down. Long and his grandmother cried tears of joy. They were eagerly waiting for Sin Nhat to return to tell them the good news. "Nhat will be so happy to know that his father is awake," she said emotionally. But they didn't know. Somewhere else, Sin Nhat was facing danger. Every second that passed was a life and death battle. Would they have a chance to see her again? After that, Hang immediately went to the office and informed everyone that he had completely remembered everything, and everyone was very happy. While everyone was hoping for a reunion, on the other side, the kidnappers began to show their complacency. After many hours of guarding, they were all starving. One of them was assigned to stay behind to watch over Sin Nhat, while the other went to a nearby grocery store to buy some cold bread. On the way back, he passed by an empty lot where some children were playing unsupervised. His eyes flashed with calculation. He smiled falsely, waving to a little boy to come closer. "Hey kid, I bought some really good bread. Do you want some?" The boy hesitated for a moment, and then followed. He chatted as he walked, leading the boy quite a distance away from the residential area, to a deserted area near the woods. "Sit down and eat. I bought some really good stuffing," he said, handing the bread to the boy. While the boy was busy eating, not being alert, the guy quietly took out a roll of tape from his pocket. In the blink of an eye, he covered the boy's mouth, locked his hands, and quickly dragged the boy towards the abandoned house where Sin Nhat was being held. From a hungry man, he turned into a heartless kidnapper. Now, he had another small hostage, and the fear in that house spread even more. No one expected that the crimes were silently multiplying. And would anyone be able to stop it before the tragedy continued? When he got there, he pushed the door open and shouted, "Come out and help." The guard inside the house immediately rushed out, stunned when he saw a gagged, trembling boy. "Where is the order to arrest more children?" he asked. "The more people, the harder it is to escape." The other guy laughed sinisterly. The two quickly dragged the boy inside and tied him tightly to the old pillar, where Sin Nhat was also being held. Her eyes were filled with panic when she saw a child now suffering the same fate. The room had one more person, and one more danger. After tying the boy to the post, he turned away, took his phone from his pocket, and quickly typed a message. "Done. Another kid. Sent." A few seconds later, the phone vibrated. He opened it to see there were no words, just a smiley face, simple but haunting. He shivered, his eyes darkening. That symbol from the leader was no different from the next order for the crime. Behind that smile was the spreading darkness. Hang was working at the office when the phone rang. Looking at the screen showing his mother-in-law's name, he picked up. Her voice was trembling, Hang. Someone said this morning they saw his wife and child being dragged away by a stranger near their rice field. Hang's heart felt like it was being squeezed. He jumped up, without saying another word, immediately calling his teammates. The two of them drove to the place where people saw Sin Nhat being taken away. When they arrived, his mother-in-law was also standing there, pacing back and forth anxiously. When they arrived at the abandoned house, Hang and his teammates immediately rushed in. But inside, it was empty. Not a single person, no sound, only a cold room. No blood, no footprints. Everything was as if no one had ever been there. Hang stood there, her heart pounding violently. Sin Nhat had been taken somewhere else, and they were one step too late. Despite their disappointment, Hang and her teammates did not allow themselves to give up. They knew that time was running out, but they could not give up. The search entered a new phase, intense, determined, and uncompromising. Right now, in an abandoned house far from the residential area, the kidnappers were hastily cleaning up their tracks. One of them was untying Sin Nhat and the boy, intending to take them both to a new location that the boss had directed. Sin Nhat was exhausted, his eyes still shining with fear, while the boy was trembling and didn't dare to breathe too hard. At that moment, the old wooden door creaked open. A woman working nearby, intending to come in to rest as usual. She was stunned when she saw the scene before her. Two hostages tied up, and two men looking at her with murderous eyes. "Hold him," one of them shouted, rushing towards her. The woman panicked, dropped her bag, turned around and ran away. The sound of chasing footsteps echoed throughout the wasteland. In the moment of life and death, she was lucky to rush out the back door, crawl through the dense hedge and disappear. They stood there, stunned, their faces pale. The woman had escaped, which meant the police could arrive at any moment. One of them growled, "It's too late, we have to leave now." Inside the house, Sin Nhat and the boy were being dragged away in a hurry, the ropes still untied. Scared and exhausted, but in Sin Nhat's eyes, there was now a glimmer of hope. Someone had seen them, and maybe help was coming very close. The woman ran frantically out into the street, her face pale, just in time to see the police group led by Hang searching for Sin Nhat. She screamed, almost collapsing, "I saw it. A woman and a child were tied up in an abandoned house behind that lot." Without needing to hear more, Hang signaled the whole team to immediately follow. The sound of hurried footsteps echoed in the harsh noon sun. Everyone hoped that this would be the end of Sin Nhat's disappearance. But when they rushed in, the scene before their eyes made everyone's heart sink. The house was empty, not a single person in sight. The traces of their hasty departure were clear, but everything was too late. The boy was gone. Sin Nhat was gone. There was only a small object lying alone on the dusty ground, the old hat that Sin Nhat often wore. A comrade picked up the hat. Hang clenched her hands, her eyes burning with pain. They had arrived, but they were one step too late. And now, the chase entered a more dangerous phase than ever. They stood silently in the middle of the abandoned house, heavy with disappointment. Once again, the hope that had just flashed was extinguished. Sin Nhat's hat lay cold on the ground, reminding them that the rescue was not yet over, and time was running out. In a more remote place, deep in the forest, Sin Nhat and the boy were taken by them in an exhausted state. They chose an old hut in the middle of the forest, a place no one expected. As soon as they arrived, the two men immediately tied their hands and feet tightly to a wooden post, this time much more carefully. Sin Nhat tried to struggle but to no avail, and the boy could only sob silently. One of them angrily took out his phone, dialed a number and shouted, "Hurry up, we can't hold on any longer, we're almost exposed." The other side only coldly replied, "Hold still, it's almost done." He threw the phone on the ground, gritted his teeth, "If they come again, I'll take care of both of you." The atmosphere in the hut became stifling, tense as a bowstring, and the nightmare was not over yet. Unable to find his wife, Hang bowed his head in silence, his eyes filled with pain. He kept blaming himself. "If only I hadn't lost my memory, maybe she wouldn't have been in danger." Regret tore at his heart. Will the police be able to save Sin Nhat in time? Don't miss the tense developments in the next episode.